More than the theory and principles of Scrum, all Scrum practitioners want to know how they can use Scrum practically in the real world. One of the areas in the Scrum application is estimation. So I have decided to record this video to explain the tips and tricks behind estimations and of course introduce multiple estimation techniques. But let's start with some thinking guidelines. First, I'm afraid to say that the main point of estimation is mostly overlooked by Scrum practitioners. So stay with me and watch this video until the end where I will uncover the main point of estimation. Second, you know that Scrum was designed to deal with complex problems where you generally don't know what you don't know. It is about creative work for products that don't exist yet. So searching for an accurate estimation is pointless. You just need a good enough guess to start your work implementation. As an example, imagine you want to run a new restaurant. You have decided to create a new recipe for an outstanding, delicious meal which is going to be your competitive advantage. Can you say how long it will exactly take to create that recipe? Absolutely not. There is no way to know how long a piece of creative work is going to take. So be comfortable with having just good enough guesses to start. Third, Scrum is a framework with minimum boundaries without prescription. So you can't claim that a particular estimation technique is the best practice for all Scrum teams around the world. The best practice is just context-based. The very text in the Scrum Guide says, various processes, techniques, and methods can be employed within the framework. Scrum wraps around existing practices or rendering them unnecessary. So be open to trying various estimation techniques and see which works best for your team. Fourth, there isn't any word of estimation in the latest Scrum Guide. Instead, you see the word sizing. Why? There are a few reasons. Thanks to my fellow PST colleagues Ryan Ripley and Todd Miller as they explained the difference nicely. They said, Scrum Guide 2020 replaced the word estimation with sizing to include different practices teams use to plan their work. Estimation can mean different things such as story points or time-based estimates, which can limit and create the illusion that a story point is an essential part of Scrum. Sizing, on the other hand, refers to the size of a product backlog item or PBI and allows for more flexibility in terms of practices such as counting cards or using flow-based metrics. Additionally, the change to sizing also aligns better with the focus on the product backlog and its management in the Scrum framework. The change in wording is subtle, but the implications are significant in giving teams more autonomy in planning and managing their work. Overall, the change from estimation to sizing in the Scrum Guide 2020 is intended to be more inclusive and flexible for teams to use different practices for planning their work. Fifth, there are two places where we do estimations in product backlog refinement and sprint planning. Keep in mind that all estimates are done by just developers as they know the most how PBIs are going to be implemented. So, Scrum Master and Product Owner are not part of the estimators. More than that, estimation in Scrum is a group work as it includes a wider set of experiences and perspectives than estimates by individuals. In fact, when developers together estimate something, they connect their minds and make a mastermind that is more enriching and a smarter mind than any individual mind. So, adhere to the collective, not individual estimates. Now let's talk about various techniques of estimation. There are three main categories of sizing and estimation: absolute estimation, relative estimation, and flow metrics. Absolute estimation. The main assumption behind the absolute estimation is that everything in the project is certain and clear. The most widely used way is time-based estimation. It shows itself with units like hours, days, etc. The next way is effort-based estimation. It shows itself with units like manpower, cost, and so on. But you know that Scrum was designed for complex problems where you generally don't know what you don't know. So how can you estimate your work with accurate numbers of time or effort? It comes from the traditional way of working, where command and control were the dominant way of management. Managers used to have absolute estimates in the shape of time and effort as a commitment of workers and control them constantly to check if the work is implemented exactly based on the estimated numbers. Bear in mind that this is the least useful estimation way for complex work. It is easy to condemn this approach, but it is unfortunately the reality for many individuals, teams, and companies. Just focus on empowering your team by encouraging them to try other estimation categories. Relative estimation. As a foundational concept, agile estimation is intended to get you to a point of good enough to start. Traditional estimation is based around good enough to finish. This mindset is hard to escape from. If you want to use the agile estimation concept, you need a transition from the traditional mindset. In fact, you should learn to leave room for unknowns to emerge along the implementation. To explain relative estimation, let me show you something. Imagine you have a piece of wood. What do you say if I ask you how many grams this piece of wood is? It is obvious that you will guess various numbers like 100 grams, 150, 220, 500, and so on. Now let's change the situation and question. Imagine you have two pieces of wood, A and B. Which one is bigger? Maybe you laugh here and confidently say A is bigger than B. All of you will say the same thing. Why? Because we as humans are much better at relative estimation compared to absolute estimation. So we can use this fact for a better conversation about estimating creative work. I should elaborate on a tip now. There is a technique to do relative estimation named planning poker. However, when we estimate, we need to use some units for estimation. Here, units like story points, t-shirt size, and fruit size come to life. So, you use planning poker to do estimation, and results will be based on one of those relative units. Now, let's talk about planning poker itself. First of all, you need a deck of cards. The most famous deck of cards has numbers based on the modified Fibonacci sequence. Fibonacci sequence says each element is the sum of two previous elements, and when it gets bigger, the difference with the previous element gets bigger. Like 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5. But when you go to the higher numbers, you don't see the exact rule. For example, 8 plus 13 equals 21, but the next element in planning poker is 20. Because of that, it is said it is based on the modified Fibonacci sequence. According to the estimation unit, you will have various decks of cards. Let's get started with cards for story points. But first, what a story point itself is. Story points are estimates of the relative overall effort required to fully implement a PBI influenced by the following factors: the amount of work to do, the complexity of the work, and any risk or uncertainty in doing the work. When we estimate with story points, we assign a point value to each item. The absolute values we assign are unimportant. You can use a modified Fibonacci sequence 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, or a doubling sequence 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. What matters are the relative values. A PBI with 2 story points should be twice as much effort as a 1 story point. It should be 1/4 of a PBI that is estimated as 8 story points. Instead of assigning 1, 2, and 8, you could have assigned 100, 200, and 800. It is the ratios that matter, not the actual numbers. Now let's see how planning poker is played. Imagine you are in your sprint planning. 1. Each developer has a deck of cards. 2. The PBI is discussed briefly by the Scrum team. They try to understand the PBI through conversation. Product owner has a crucial role here as he is in direct contact with the market and stakeholders, knowing what their expectations are. 3. Each developer individually selects a card that is his or her estimate. 4. Cards are turned over at the same time, so all members can see them simultaneously. 5. The Scrum team discusses differences, specifically outliers. I mean those developers who gave it the highest and lowest numbers. We ask them how they perceived the PBI. With a new round of conversation, all members get a better understanding of the work. 6. Re-estimate until estimates converge to one value. And 7. You are there. You have estimated your PBI with the collective intelligence of the team. There are a few tips for playing planning poker. Tip 1. To play planning poker, you need a baseline PBI because the item being estimated should be compared to one or more previously estimated items. Mr. Mike Cohen elaborated on this precisely. An advantage to relative estimating is that it becomes easier to do as a team estimates more items. Estimating a new item becomes a matter of looking at the previously estimated items and finding something requiring a similar amount of work. This is easier to do when the team has already estimated 100 items than when they have only estimated 10. But how about a team that just wants to start using planning poker in their process? The very basic solution is to identify a very simple PBI in your project that doesn't need too much effort as the baseline and call it one story point, then compare other PBIs with it. If you want a better solution, team members should identify 2 values that will establish their baseline. They do this without playing planning poker. They do it just through discussion. After the baseline is established, team members can use planning poker to estimate additional items. Ideally, the team is able to identify both a 2-point PBI and a 5-point PBI. Many other items can be more reliably compared against the 2 and the 5. If finding a 2 and a 5 proves difficult, look instead for a 3 and an 8. However, it is better to avoid starting with a 1-point PBI because comparing all subsequent PBIs to a 1-point PBI is difficult. Saying one product backlog item will take 2 or 3 times more effort than another seems intuitively easier and more accurate than saying something will take 10 times more effort. If a team has established a baseline with 2 and 5-point PBIs, team members can validate a 3-point estimate by thinking about whether it will take more effort than the 2 and less effort than the 5. Tip 2. If you are a developer and you are doubtful about the estimate number, let's say between 20 and 40, you should not take an average announcing your estimate is, for example, 30. You are just allowed to select from those cards you have in hand. Tip 3. If you as a team see that the estimate of a PBI is a large number like 40 or 100, you don't accept it as the estimate. In fact, it is just a signal that your PBI is too big and now is the time to break it down into some smaller PBIs. You should get a sense that you as a team can complete a PBI within one sprint. If you feel that you cannot finish it in one sprint, just break it down into smaller PBIs. Now let's introduce specific cards in the deck. Before we continue, I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial up to now. If you want to become an outstanding Scrum Master, you can join my Professional Scrum Master PSM class and learn Professional Scrum with me, which is the most decent version of Scrum. Now let's continue our tutorial. Question mark. The developer doesn't understand the PBI and wishes to ask the product owner additional questions. Infinity symbol. This PBI is too big for a number, even it is bigger than the maximum number in your deck. It increases transparency in the estimation process. Coffee cup. I am tired and want a break like a cup of coffee or something. Some decks use the pie symbol instead of a coffee cup, saying, I want a break and go get some pie. Imagine you are in the sprint planning of a 1-month sprint. Your event time box can be up to 8 hours or a full day. It is natural that team members get tired and need some breaks. Again, this card increases transparency in your estimation process. 0. The PBI takes some effort but usually so little that the team cannot estimate it as 1 or even a half story point, but it still creates value. As an example, imagine you want to change the format of dates on an accounting report. It just takes the team about 10 minutes to code and test. This card is the least used one among the planning poker cards. One more thing that I need to mention is that you can use both physical and digital decks of planning poker cards. For the digital one, I can name several categories. Application is the first category. Examples are Agile Estimation and Planning Poker. You can find them on Google Play or other app stores and install them on your cell phone. When you are estimating, you choose your card on your cell phone and then flip it to your colleagues to show your estimate. The second category is online services. Examples are planningpoker.com, planningpokeronline.com, and scrumpoker-online.org, which is free. The third category is integrating third-party services with task management tools. You can integrate various third-party planning poker services with both Jira and Azure DevOps task management tools. If you go to the Atlassian Marketplace or Visual Studio Marketplace and search for planning poker, you will find many options to use. As the last part of the planning poker section, keep these caveats in mind. Do not convert your estimates to hours or days. It is just a relative estimation for complex work where still you don't know everything. And don't judge PBIs before doing the estimates. It affects the minds of other team members and makes them biased. It is called anchoring, the effect of causing an estimator to simply agree with a non-estimate before estimates are actually called for. For example, this is an easy one. I am throwing a 3. This is huge. This will be a 5. I have no idea, and so on. T-shirt sizing. To do the t-shirt sizing, similar to the story points way, you still use the planning poker technique, but with different cards designed based on the t-shirt size. It has its cards with symbols of extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, extra large, and those specific cards. It means a medium PBI needs more effort than a small PBI and less than a large one. It is a very simple, basic, fun, and consensus-based estimation. T-shirt sizing excels at sparking team collaboration, creativity, and fun. It's ideal for new teams, large backlogs, or early stage estimation. Try it and see if it works for you. Fruit sizing. It is another unit of estimation resulting from the planning poker technique. However, it has its own cards of fruits like cherry, kiwi, orange, coconut, watermelon, and those specific cards. It means a kiwi PBI needs more effort than a cherry PBI and less than an orange one. Essentially, it is another version of t-shirt sizing. It is a really simple and fun yet effective consensus-based estimation ideal for new teams, large backlogs, or earlier stage estimation. There isn't any problem if you do your estimation with a bit more flavor of fun. Make your work process enjoyable. Just try it and see if it works for you. Flow metrics. The third estimation category is flow metrics, which is sort of disruptive compared to the previous categories. Let's see what it is. When you build a product, you need to go through a few steps: refinement, development, and delivery. They together are called value stream pipeline. If you take one step back and see the whole process instead of focusing on single PBIs and try to set up a gentle flow of value delivery, your process will be predictable. It is still related to planning and delivery, but more on the flow of value. This allows a team to focus on getting things done instead of trying to answer the question of when will it be done. This dramatically reduces the amount of time a team needs to spend on estimation. It helps you give a data-driven answer to the question of when is it done when talking to stakeholders. Now, how can we use the flow metrics approach practically? To do so, you need to monitor your overall flow with 4 basic metrics as follows. Work in progress, or WIP. The number of work items started but not finished. The team can use the WIP metric to provide transparency about their progress towards reducing their WIP and improving their flow. Cycle time, the amount of elapsed time between when a work item starts and when a work item finishes. Work item age, the amount of time between when a work item started and the current time. This applies only to items that are still in progress. Throughput, the number of work items finished per unit of time. For more information, you can read about this approach in the Kanban Guide for Scrum Teams document, which is accessible on the scrum.org website. Even you can participate in a 2-day Professional Scrum with Kanban or PSK course. Now let's talk about a few tips. Tip 1. You need to actively monitor your flow. When you see any blockage, you should work on it and remove it as soon as possible. This way of dealing with your flow creates a reliable and predictable value stream pipeline. Tip 2. There is a rule behind the work in progress metric. The more open PBIs you have in your sprint, the less productive your team is. So, limit the number of open PBIs in your sprint to less than the number of developers. It puts them in a situation to collaborate more and reduce risk. More than that, when more than one developer works on a PBI, the team is more likely to complete it sooner. Tip 3. About the age metric, when you see the age of one PBI is constantly going up day after day without any move and progress in the pipeline, it is a signal requesting more attention to see what the problem is. If you constantly check the age of the PBIs, you will discover unexpected ages in time, which makes your pipeline more fluent. Checking the age of PBIs in the daily scrums is a good practice. And tip 4. In this category, you can use the no estimates method as well. In this method, you have the conversation with your team when you plan your sprint, but you don't give PBIs any number of estimates with units like story point or t-shirt size. You as the whole team need to acknowledge that a PBI can be completed within one sprint. So you start pulling PBIs from the product backlog to your sprint backlog until the team says that's enough. Then you are done. With this method, you need to do a few things. Breaking down PBIs into similarly small ones and tracking the average number of PBIs completed in previous sprints as a guideline for the team to generally know how many PBIs it can pick for the new sprint. To be honest, among all the 3 estimation categories, I personally love the flow metrics category the most. Okay guys, we are almost there, except for one thing, as I'm supposed to tell you what the main point of estimation is. I'm happy that you have invested your time in understanding various ways of estimations and watched this video until the end. The main point of estimation is not the final number resulting from your estimation process, but the conversation that you have in the team to understand PBIs. The more quality conversation you have, the more smooth sprint you will have, and of course, the more probable you will be in completing selected PBIs in the sprint. It is very simple to do and of course not to do. And I'm afraid many teams forget the conversation side of the estimation. So make a definite decision right now that your main focus in estimation will be around having quality conversations, not the resulting numbers. And final word, if you want to start your Scrum journey powerfully, join my PSM class and learn the most accurate version of Scrum. Let me help you develop an authentic Scrum mindset, supporting you to be a true agile professional team player.